Alright, what's going on, guys? It's your boy Scrub here, back again with another video. Hope you guys are having a great day. I know I am. But today I wanted to talk about something that is a pretty big deal. For those of you that don't know, our neighbors up north are currently facing a proposed bill that would effectively shut down all independent Canadian YouTube channels. Obviously, I'm not a fan of that. I think anybody should be allowed to make content on this website. So I just wanted to talk about it, spread a little bit of awareness about it. So without further ado, let's get into it. Trudeau's government is still trying to wreck Canadian YouTube, and this is written by JJ McCullough, who actually is a YouTuber. So from what I understand, all this would do is make YouTubers have to report their content to the Canadian Radio Telecommunications Center, which might sound simple, but then realize that's what like radio broadcasts have to do. Imagine if tomorrow, every time I wanted to post a video, I just had to be like, nah, I can't, gotta send it to the FTC first. It would most likely shut down a majority of Canadian YouTubers unless they were huge and could go through the headache of doing that. No more people just posting videos all willy-nilly, and if they do, they could probably get in trouble. And as for what they're looking for, they want all Canadian digital content to have a certain level of Canadianness, and I'm not making that up. I've been thinking of Olsen and 449 Canadian YouTubers more popular than him amid the news that Prime Minister Justin Trudeau's government intends to revive its stalled efforts to regulate YouTube in a more nationalistic direction. Trudeau's project, after all, is grounded in a series of conclusions about the supposedly struggling state of Canadian digital content creators that are so insultingly at odds with observable reality to invite suspicion of hidden, darker motives. Anytime a government comes in and starts saying we're going to start regulating who can say what on huge platforms, and on top of that it needs to have a certain level of Canadianness to the program, of course people are going to start thinking about ulterior, darker motives. Everybody should be able to say what they want. Within reason, you can't shout fire in a crowded movie theater. But in my opinion, freedom of speech is a pretty important right, and the idea that, the government could just control who's allowed to talk in the public square and who can't is pretty scary. And yes, I know that I'm not Canadian. It's not like I would be directly affected. But if you don't think that governments are going to be paying attention to this and see how it works out and possibly doing it themselves, you're kidding yourself. Every government would love the ability to tomorrow be like, oh, we can steer the entire direction of content based on arbitrary guidelines. So I do think that while I'm not Canadian, it's so important to talk about because one, Canadian YouTubers deserve to make videos without having to report it to a radio commission. And two, chances are eventually it's going to continue to happen in more places. Because I don't know if you guys are aware, but Germany has something relatively similar. If your live stream is over a certain size, I'm not too specific, I'm not too knowledgeable. But from what I've been told from my friend who streams in Germany, there's regulations in place where once your stream's of a certain size, you need a broadcasting license. So if you don't think that stuff like this is going to be coming up more and more, you're kidding yourself. And I just think in general, these Canadian YouTubers don't need to be dealing with this crap. It's unfair. Bill C-11, the Online Streaming Act, the successor to the scrapped Bill C-10 that drew much scorn last spring, once again proposes placing YouTube and other platforms like it under the authority of the Canadian Radio, Television, and Telecommunications Commission, which will have the power to force YouTube, to categorize and distribute its content the way the Canadian television and radio stations already must. In practice, this means dictating the proportion of time that shall be devoted to broadcasting of Canadian programs, as well as prescribing what constitutes a Canadian program. This could conceivably obligate YouTube to bury foreign videos whenever a Canadian uses the search engine, as well as force Canadian creators to fill out some sort of checklist when they upload a video in order to affirm it fulfills government-dictated criteria of Canadianness and is worthy of discoverability in the new search algorithm. It could even force Canadian users to automatically subscribe to channels the government thinks are worthy, a la Canadian cable providers' current obligations to make Canadians subscribe to stations such as the CBC and Aboriginal People's Television's network, regardless of if they want to or not. Clause 10.1K of the proposed legislation, awards the CRTC ominous open-ended power to decree regulations respecting such other matters as it deems necessary for furtherance of its objects. Oh, that's not horrifying at all. I love when they add a little bit at the end of the bill. Oh, by the way, they can add whatever regulations they deem necessary in order to make their goal happen. Yep, absolute power is always fantastic in the hands of people that get it. Screw it, just give them the ability to duct tape people's mouths shut, too. This would basically just give the Canadian government total control over what people are able to see on YouTube. I mean, think about it. If you're a Canadian YouTuber who's being critical of the government, I'm not saying it would 100% happen, but in theory, they could just reject your video from being discoverable in the Canadian algorithm because of its Canadianness. Like, what does that even mean? That's such an arbitrary thing to judge it by. Who are they to say that you can or cannot make a video that's certain amount of Canadianness inside of it? If you're Canadian and you're making a video, then by default, it's got enough Canadianness in it for me. You should just be allowed to make a YouTube video. I don't know why you would have to fill out regulation with the government and the radio telecommunications network. Imagine filling out that form. You're just like, oh, I'm talking over Valorant gameplay about whatever I'm talking about. Please let me upload it. And they're like, ooh, sorry, gameplay's not good enough. You didn't drop a 40 bomb. Plus, I don't like that it's going to drown all the foreign videos in the algorithm. I don't know how much of my audience is Canadian, but the idea that like all the Canadian YouTube watchers suddenly would only have Canadian content shown to them if it's approved by this random organization. Kind of weird, dude. Like, if you are on YouTube, you should be able to watch YouTube videos. I don't like the idea of a government having a ton of control over everything I watch, everything I'm allowed to see. And before people are like, how do you know it'll be used that way? Well, I mean, come on. Like, look at the way it's written, guys. Come on. The second you start adding arbitrary guidelines to content like government dictated Canadianness, right, is when you start to just have them using it any way they want to use it. Because what does that mean? How do you judge Canadianness of a video? Imagine if they were like, oh, these videos aren't American enough. Like, what does that mean? If an American citizen wants to use their freedom of speech to make a video, it is an American video. And if a Canadian wants to say their opinion, it's a Canadian video. There's already rules in place on these platforms to take down misinformation and crazy conspiracy theories. I don't know why you need more power to be like, no, you're not allowed to post this video making fun of Justin Trudeau. Or whoever it may be. That's just the only Canadian politician I know. I don't know anyone else. This is all being done in the name of the patriotic greater good to protect Canada's cultural sovereignty and make our diverse Canadian voices, music, and stories heard across Canada and globally through a variety of services, says the government's news release, alongside the more ideologically precise objective of ensuring greater representation of Indigenous peoples, racialized communities, cultural and linguistic minorities, LGBTQ2+ communities, and persons with disabilities to guarantee our culture and content will better reflect a 21st century Canada. I myself am an LGBTQ2+ YouTuber who has never struggled to tell Canadian stories on the platform, as Tristan Hopper once noted of me in the National Post. The man got 250,000 views on a video about the Canadian Constitution. Evan, Van Osfong, and Lily Singh are among the most successful Canadians in YouTube history, and both are visible minorities. The radical Indigenous rights activist Pam Palmater has a channel. A Brazilian-Canadian girl has earned more than 8 million subscribers making videos where she speaks only Portuguese. The list goes on. The Canadian government itself regularly concedes this reality whenever it feels the need to assemble a crack team of diverse and interesting YouTubers as part of some overpriced influencer campaign pushing voting or vaccines or whatever. So from what I am understanding from the way JJ McCullough writ this, they're saying it's all under the idea of promoting these voices, even though these voices kind of are popular on Canadian YouTube by default already. So, and I don't think that it's a bad objective to get diverse voices and diverse stories out there. That's how you learn more about the world and understand things different than what's been exposed to you, is by talking to people who are different than you and have different experiences. But I feel like government regulation to come out and tell people when they're Canadian enough, when they're talking about stuff enough, when this is allowed, when that's not allowed, doesn't make sense if your objective is already happening. Like, if the biggest Canadian YouTubers are a part of these groups that you're trying to represent more, then I don't understand why you need to codify it and make it legislation, because it's just already happening. And I think if you look across YouTube, you would see that there's a lot of diverse voices. I feel like, if anything, as far as an entertainment network would go, I know YouTube's not television, but if you were to look at it that way, YouTube has to have some of the most diverse content creators ever. Like, there's literally a different content creator for every walk of life. No matter what you're into, no matter what you identify as, no matter what you want to identify with culturally, there is a YouTuber that represents it. I'm going to give a compliment to YouTube. I feel like that's always been something that YouTube has been good at, is allowing people, no matter what walk of life they're in, to make content and garner an audience and expose people to that line of thinking and that way of life. I just don't get how the government's going to make it better than it already is at that. For 17 years, YouTube has been a case study of what would happen if a user-driven broadcast platform was permitted to operate in Canada without the CRTC busybodying, and the result has been endless hours of quality Canadian content and thousands of Canadian superstars, some of whom are among the most watched personalities on the site, and perhaps even amongst some of the most famous Canadians in the world. This being the case, Bill C-17 has earned the vicious characterization of its fiercest opponents, an act of authoritarian-minded government seeking greater control over independent media for purely ideological purposes and a globally unprecedented reimagining of the state's right to control online content, justified only by an imperious assertion that politicians and bureaucrats should decide what their citizenry needs to see. If passed, it will serve only to empower other regimes that believe the unrestricted freedom to choose what we watch and hear is a monster to be slain. If I was a Canadian YouTuber, I would definitely be freaking out about this. And listen, chances are it's going to pass and they'll leave them alone. I'm not saying that tomorrow they're going to go out and ban every Canadian YouTuber and shut them down. But here's the issue. Once you give the government control over something, you don't really get it back a whole lot. Like, once you open the door and you let your government start controlling what type of online content can be published and when it's Canadian enough and all that stuff, it's not like one day they're going to wake up and go, oh, we don't want to do this anymore. You guys go back to posting the videos that you want how you wanted to do it. Like, once they're in charge of that, they're going to keep that power. The idea that the government needs to be in control of what I watch, when I watch it, determine if it's, American enough for me to watch is absolutely ridiculous. I understand I'm not Canadian. I know there's probably going to be some people, you're not Canadian, shut up about it. I'm saying y'all deserve the right to pick what you want to watch. And the idea that your government knows what's better for you than you do is a little bit ridiculous when it comes to consuming digital content. I don't think you need your government in there telling you like, oh yeah, no, you can't watch that super bad YouTube video. What are you, my mommy? Like, come on, man. I'm an adult. I can pick what YouTube videos I want to watch. I have seen a lot of people talking about this. Hopefully it continues to get spread about, because I think the only way that you're going to get something like this not to go through is if there is a big public outcry and backlash. As it said in the article, Bill C-10 was what was proposed before, something similar along the lines, and that didn't end up getting passed. So hopefully a little bit of awareness will get people to do something about it. As for what you can do, once again, I'm not Canadian, but what you do in the United States, call your elected representative, let them know you don't like this bill. It's probably the best way to go about it. There's ways to text into, but from everything I've heard, calling is more effective. Just because you don't want people being in control of YouTube, determining what can and can't be uploaded, when it can and can't be seen, choosing what videos you see, when you see them. I don't know, man. I guess if you're cool with that, like if you really want that, then it's your right to have that opinion. But I don't like the idea of being told what I can and can't watch on YouTube. Or what I can and can't upload, man. No, you are not allowed to make fun of Morgs, okay? Everybody here at the FBI loves him, so we're gonna block your upload. Like, what are they gonna do, dude? Come on. JJ McCullough's gonna try to make another video about Canadian snacks or candy flavors. They're gonna not let him post it because it's bad for people's health or something. It's just ridiculous, dude. But on that note, I think that's gonna do it for the video. Hopefully you enjoyed. If you did, I'd appreciate y'all taking a second to press the like button. Let me know what you thought in the comment section down below. And if you like videos like this, subscribe and turn on notifications. I post 2 videos every day. You don't want to miss them. But yeah, on that note, don't get anyone pregnant. If you do, make sure they're hot. I'll see you guys next time. I'm out. Peace.